Welcome, everybody. We'll go ahead and call today's FARGODOME Authority
Don Detlis from Perkins World on the telephone.
Authority meeting to order. Just a point of order, we have Don Detlefs on the speakerphone, so welcome, Don.
Thank you.
First order of business to approve the agenda, which is before you, rather short. So if you could take a moment to look over. If there's no additions or changes, I'll accept one change. Rob has a bid approval on cooling tower that we'll add under his general manager's report. So with that addition, if there are no other changes, I'd accept a motion to accept the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion from David, second from Mike. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. On to approval of the minutes from the November 26th meeting, which is page 1 of your packet. Take a moment to look those over.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Motion from Blake, second from Dan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Is there any old business? Hearing none, we'll move on to new business and turn it over to Rob for the general manager's report.
All right, being it's December 10th, there is no financials for the month of November. Obviously, November was a standard month. Two NDSU playoff games, Minnesota sectionals, Dakota Bowl. So a lot of good events there. I think looking at it, probably the NDSU regular season games in November will track just like they were the other regular season games, so slightly below what the budget said. So turning to page 4 is just the since our last meeting, which was November 26th, we were just loading in and we were in the midst of the North Dakota Ag Show. Busy week for building operations and a lot of other staff, event services, everybody helping out. That event moved in the Sunday, Monday, 25th, 26th of November with the show on the 27th and 28th. Tuesday, Wednesday, that show moved out the afternoon of Wednesday. Got out in a couple of hours. United Rental reset the floor. And then the Health Tech Trade Career Expo, which is put on, managed by the Home Builders Association, but then put on by I think West Fargo schools primarily, but then I think there was about 40 or 50 area freshmen coming through, kind of look at all the trade opportunities. M-State, a lot of technical NDSCS here, as well as other technical in the health industry, technical industry and the trades, giving them ideas of what to do and what to plan on for possible future employment. So that moved in about 5 o'clock Thursday morning, the 30th. Last group of students went through about 2:15, and at 3 o'clock, the floor was cleared and cleaned, and the turf rolled out thanks to the help of many people, the operations staff, but also other administrative and event staff in the building. And I believe NDSU was practicing on the turf at about 5:10 or 5:15 that afternoon. So this is the week that is the week that the magic carpet system gets put to its test. Walkthroughs and everything on Thursday the 30th, and then NDSU hosted Montana State on the 1st, and then obviously with a win, won that, and then hosted Colgate last Saturday, the 8th, and brings us up to today with getting ready for the national semifinal game this coming Friday night, 7 o'clock versus South Dakota State. Comments or questions on past events from the board? Moving forward then, obviously, like we said, we have the game this Friday, 7 o'clock kick, 5:30 doors. NDSU commencement, winter commencement will be happening over at the Shack. I think it's a 2 or a 3 o'clock ceremony.
2.
So it'll be in a 7 o'clock game that works out well. Last year was a 6 o'clock game, and there was about a 30 to 60 minute pandemonium, cars trying to get out, cars trying to get in, let me go here, no, I'm going there type of a thing. So with that extra hour of separation, we find it works a little bit better to get one crowd out and the next crowd in. for that. And then next Thursday, the 20th, in the Gate City Bank Theater, we have Christmas Wonderland. Show is selling relatively well, better than the October show. So looking forward to that. Off for the Christmas holiday, and then between Christmas and New Year's, Rumble on the Red Wrestling Tournament is here again. They'll move in on Thursday the 27th. Have their registration the afternoon and evening of the 27th and start wrestling at 9 a.m., 9:30 a.m. Friday morning the 28th. Run all day Friday, all day Saturday for the junior varsity and varsity, and then they'll have a youth tournament on Sunday. I think they've got usually somewhere in the neighborhood of about 60 to 65 varsity wrestling teams come in for that, so that's a pretty big event. 1,300 wrestlers for that. Then into the new year, and on Sunday the 5th, the Fargo Marathon kicks off with their early morning resolution run on the concourse and lobby, and then with a couple of open weekend in January, working with Games Galore. Thought it'd be a good idea. Building staff thought it'd be a good idea to bring back Fight the Frost, which is essentially a family event, gives the kids time to blow off some Christmas and winter energy inside with blow-up games from Games Galore and different things such as that. So we'll have that on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday the 11th and the 13th. Right now, that following weekend is open in the arena. We do have some meeting room events, and we kick off and start going almost every weekend then with the Red River Valley Boat and Marine Show moving in on the 23rd, 24th, and that's starting on the 25th of January, leading up to our next meeting on the 29th. Any questions on any of that from board members? All right, and then the other thing is with the purchasing policy, since it's over $50,000, we have $75,000 in the 2018 capital budget for repairs to our main cooling tower outside. So operations did put a scope together and sent it out. We received 3 bids back. Robert Gibbons' Son came back at $56,647. Peterson Mechanical came back at $64,000, and Grants Mechanical came back at $63,715 for the work. Keeping in mind this is a budgeted item, $75,000 in the budget. A few dollars have been expended, so there's about $69,600 remaining. So I would request a motion to approve the bid of Robert Gibbons' Sons at $56,647 to perform that work.
So moved. Second.
Motion from Dan, second from David. Roll call.
Yes. Mike?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Troy?
Yes.
Blake?
Yes.
Darrell?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Thank you. If there's nothing else on that, that would conclude my report.
All right, thank you, Rob. There were no committee meetings because of the short window, so we'll move on to item C, RL Ingebrigtsen project update, and turn it over to you, Tim.
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, it really isn't an update. I guess it's more of a chance for you to ask questions now that hopefully you've been able to study the plans and the concepts just a little bit. We continue to develop the concepts, but at this point it's really about questions that you might have.
I know, Blake, you've gotten back. I forgot to print it off. I apologize. But you had said something about public entry on the north side that wasn't really shown on the drawings, but yes, there definitely would be still public entry maintained on that north end of the building as we currently have. And I brain farted on the rest of your questions.
It was just I was asking about the concession stuff on the west side.
That's right.
You know, halftime of a football game, the east and west concourses are wall to wall. You get to the north side, it's kind of jailbreak there. It lets loose. The north side's kind of empty.
Yep.
But you know, as part of all this too, we can strategically locate vendors, maybe possibly busier vendors or.
Right, you know, and again, with saying that all of the, you want me to go over that one so you get it on there? With saying that what this drawing shows right now, and keep in mind there'll be changes, is, as I recall, you're kind of calling for getting rid of all of the permanent stands that are up underneath the existing state where they are now. So the wall, that'll expand a little bit on the concourse there. And so a lot of it will go into what is the lobby right now on the east side, and then what will become circulation space, which is underneath the canopies, the canopy on the west side. That'll all be enclosed. It'll have egress doors, but as on this way it's going now, it won't have ingress doors. Essentially, they could be set up that way, but the ingress from the south and the west will be in that southwestern corner, so that they'll be able to flow out through there. On the north end, same thing as I look at it, the concept is to essentially, when you look at the building as it sits right now, look at that exterior canopy and then visualize that being enclosed, and then the concession stands on the north end appear like they are staying in place, but adding restroom or possible concession space further to the north on that to open up that area as well.
Yeah, it's just that concession on the southwest corner. You know, every till is full. Yeah. Pretty much all the way back to the concourse.
Right.
So that's that's good.
So if we move them out to the outside, the permanent stands, that is, move them to the outside wall, for lack of a better way to understand it, but then also send the line to the north or south versus east or west, so it's not perpendicular to the traffic that's coming in and try to flow through. Now, where the permanent stands used to be, and or where you see portable stands now, so if you look at it, you can see the shading on the concourse where the existing concession stands are now. Think that'll be portables, just like we have portables set up in different places now. And you're right, then you look at, okay, which ones serve the most. So
right.
Far Out Nuts is going to get 17 spots in prime locations if you base it off of their sales volume, but different things such as that. So that's kind of the thing there. The one thing I wanted to point out, as they show on here in that southeast corner, the area they have marked open to below, for lack of a better term, it looks like a baseball home plate. I think that's going to be really important to take a look at. We went through, done a preliminary review of these drawings with NDSU with both Matt Larson, Todd Phelps, but then also Josh Hemingway on the ticketing side, Scott Walken from the operational side. And the way it's shown on the drawing right now, if you think of our big lobby, 15 to 17,000 square feet, dropping it down to what was there, obviously there's no square footage column, but it's smaller. So I think it would be important that home plate probably is going to be enclosed or much smaller than what it's shown on there, to create more surface space to be able to do crowd control, quote-unquote lobby security, if you will, a demarcation point on there, and possibly even your ticketing could go out of both sides, maybe, depending upon. So you got on the conference center side and arena side. It can be separate events or it could be the same event. But right now for a concert, we've probably got 2 to 4 windows selling tickets, 2 to 8 windows for will call tickets. So it's just kind of looking through that and going through there. Other comments, questions? Any additions, Don, you have, or Mark or Kim?
What we've been looking at since then, I think the question came up last time about if we were going to add the press box up on the east and kind of the suites and the option of the sky deck. 2 questions came up. Was it more complicated on that side because we were building through the existing lobby, and can it go on the west side? So we've been looking at that, and I think, quite honestly, as we've looked at it again, I think we could do the scheme that we did before, where we're adding on to the east and the offices for both the FARGODOME management as well as football offices, and that could be separate, and then we could do the suites and stuff on the west side. So we've been looking at that. I think that does work, and in some ways may actually be simpler to build, because then we're kind of doing two different projects. So really, all you're doing is building over our current lobby, as opposed to putting a sky level on it, which it just gets more complicated because you got to use the existing columns in the lobby. So we have been looking at that, and so we think that is doable, and we will be able to show you those drawings soon if people have interest in that. Then the other one, I think I had told you that talking to the local structure engineer, if we wanted to do the sky bridge deck, they first of all, they told us no, we couldn't do it. But then we were like, well, there's got to be a way. So we called Martin, who does Longspan and did the original building with us. And it would not be inexpensive, but if, as we expected, they said, of course, there's a way to do it. We would have to upgrade the truss and upgrade, reinforce through the angled joists that come down on the angle of the roof. But they said there is a way to do it. Would not be inexpensive. It's probably $2 to $3 million to upgrade that structure, but it's certainly doable. If everyone remembers, that would get us 450 seats up just in the sky bridge, plus additional suites. So, and again, from a structural viewpoint, that piece doesn't particularly matter if we do that one, because we're upgrading the structure and the truss. On the east side or the west side, it would be the same cost to do that one in either. So that is doable, but expensive. But perhaps if we are going to add the suites and press on one side, it may actually be easier to do it on the west as opposed to the east.
Okay.
Just because of the building process, and you don't have to be out of business with stuff going through your lobby.
Just one more note that Troy, I don't know if you want to mention Matt and Todd, or you want me to?
Yeah, Matt and Todd, we're in New York, and we're able to look at the Madison Square Garden sky deck and came back with favorable feedback on, how good of a seating it would be for football. And so from that regard, passed two people's, eye test in terms of quality of the seats, and, the height wasn't necessarily an issue. They felt it would be, for NDSU football, some of the, the better seats that we could offer. So passed their eye test anyway.
Is that one open in the back too then, or is it?
Yes, that's the one that's
Just basically has 4 to 5 foot high glass
Okay.
on all the sides of it. They did also say that they have two of them, and the other side is sectioned off a little bit more, used a little bit more for press or for some lower seating as well. So looking at it.
Yeah, and it could just be, go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead, Dan.
Well, I was going to say, we could, again, we have shown just all regular seats, kind of club seats, but, as you get into it, if you wanted to do that, obviously we would start talking to the people who rent it or lease it, and, it could be regular seats, it could be mini loge suites. There would be options as to what we could do up there, and that would be really just based on seeing what people wanted to buy. Should they be all regular seats? Should they be specialties? Should they be mini loges? What should they be? So, those are options.
So different things to think about. Again, if you recall from the previous discussion, MTS Center, Bell MTS up in Winnipeg does have something like this. I believe they use it more as press box, owner's box area. So there is still plans, possibly myself and possibly Troy, to get up to Winnipeg to view that on a day trip. And then actually looking at the flight schedule, amazingly enough, I found one place other than Denver or Minneapolis that you could get to and back in the same day. So we could actually get out to New York City, look at it, and get back to Fargo. Yes, we leave on the very first flight and get back on the very last flight, but in one day to be able to view that as well, just so we have a comfort level as well. I think if it's important to see that if we move forward on that. So.
Daryl?
Apologize for missing the presentation, but I did have some chance to visit with Rob here before the meeting, and he walked me through all of the drawings. One of the things that strikes me that I really like seeing, we all know that we have issues with space for bigger venues and things like that, so that's all well and done that you've incorporated that. We all know the restroom issues and so forth, but when I look at the FARGODOME over the years, from the exterior, it still looks great. I don't, that's not an issue. I think from the interior, for football and venues and things like that, I think it still looks good, even though there's some things obviously that you can do, seating and adding things like that. To me, the biggest area as a first impression of somebody coming here is the corridors. They don't strike me as being roomy. They don't strike me as being very inviting or warm or anything like that. And what I see with this is that you've expanded it enough where you get open space. You have the opportunity to make the corridors a little bit more friendly. And obviously I really like that. And I alluded to, and I realize when money's no object, you can do a lot of things. But when you go to a hockey game at the Ralph Engelstad and you see the floors, which, and you see the lightness and everything else there, and you come here, and this is not a knock, because I think the FARGODOME has done well. And we know that, there's costs involved. I'm not asking for an Engelstad floor, marble or whatever you have there. But the lightness of the corridors and the walking around the space and all of that, the concessions and where they have them, it just seems to flow so much nicer. And so I hope that this is an opportunity to as long as you're doing things for other reasons, whether it's restrooms, convention space and things like that, and you have the opportunity and you've taken it into consideration to push out on the east and west end, I think that's great. So I kind of like that. I hope then that the materials that we use might be something at the end of the meeting. I'm going to go into a little bit of a complimentary thing in terms of what I experienced at a venue recently. Rob knows what I'm going to allude to, but buildings that age, and when you go to whether it's baseball fields or football fields, what you notice, that ages quickest, it's where the concessions and the corridors are. I don't care if you go to Boston or you go to any of these, that's where you notice kind of, gee, am I in a tunnel or what? So kudos, I guess, thus far for kind of what you got.
Yeah, I think thanks, Daryl. I think the thing that I keep going back to is the fact that, for the most part, the structure and the design of the original dome has really never been touched. So
Yeah.
Nice opportunity, after 25 successful years to really put a new look to the dome for the next 25. And I think that's what I've liked about the design, is it takes into account a lot of those areas, not just seating, not just space, but I think just the overall flow and functionality of the building. And I think it's a credit to RLE and Don for looking at it that way. Are there any other, correct me if I'm wrong, the next step would be to take it further in design and start to attach costs? Are there any, I think last meeting we talked about anything that we don't like about what's in front of us, and if not, I think keep moving on refining designs and starting to attach costs. Is there anything from the group, concerns, small details, additional feedback that anyone has to offer?
When the costs start rolling in, I think we talked at one point about kind of it being a la carte. Is that still the plan?
It is.
I think it's a la carte as it can be.
Well, yes, but I mean, it's
then-
not
and
just
then
going
it's
to be
also
one
gonna have
number
to be-
approach
right.
to this. It's
No.
going to be,
Yeah, I would hope so, and then having to look at where you start kind of
Yep.
drawing those imaginary lines of phases.
Yep.
And, you look at this, and we've always said that the concourse expansion, restroom circulation stuff is kind of separate from the conference center, but as you see it, it's kind of all blobbed together, so we kind of have to try to figure that out as well.
So along with that, do we look at the time frame for construction and the scheduling of the phases? And does that all come at that time, or is that later once we zero in on a more specific plan?
We'll need to zero in a bit more so that we know what are the what do you really want to do, what in fact is the priority, and then we'll look at what is the order of how that might occur, the costs associated with it, and how would you actually go about doing it and when.
Okay.
When would you expect that next update?
Well, we would suggest that the next steps would be to reconnect with the committee, and then we would start talking about confirming the direction and start talking about some costs.
Any
Other questions, comments?
I would actually affirm what Daryl said. I'm hoping to use light uses for walls, floors, ceiling, anything.
Lighten it up?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just think
brighten it up.
it just needs to be brighter. And I don't think it's just because my eyes are older.
We'll use bright LED lights for you.
That would be fine.
No.
And I will tell you, I never quite understood the first base, so, or the home plate. So I would love to see what that actually looks like more than a flat.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to even.
That would be part of it too, as well,
Yeah.
is taking, a two-dimensional drawing and start making it three-dimensional.
That'd
So
be
you can
nice.
actually start to see what does it really look like when you're in there moving around inside of it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
And Nancy, that could actually play to your comments and Daryl's about wanting it brighter. That would be how you get the lower level, because keep in mind, underneath there is excavated, and it's
Right.
restrooms, concessions, and different things, so that would help to quote-unquote brighten up that lower area with, from up top, so it might open it up, or it might seem more open and not that you're stuck in a 19-foot deep hole down in that area as well. So I think maybe smaller, so there's a need, there's a purpose for it, but maybe not as big, or some sort of way to work around it to utilize it better.
Just hard for me to visualize.
It is, and we've got some three-dimensional drawings we've been working on, but we're just, don't want to overload you guys too much, so we'll definitely share those with you the next time.
Great.
In case my comments were not taken correctly when I said about the money not being in the object, it wasn't for Ralph Engelstead. It might be for us, but yeah.
All right. Any other comments? If not, thank you for the update and good work. All right.
Any additional items? Daryl, you mentioned you had.
Yeah, this kind of is going to be complimentary to the entire staff here at the Fargo Dome, the experience that I had, because I'm going to tell you the other side of the coin when you don't experience what we do here. So, and I think it's good for you guys to stick around and listen too. Has anybody ever been to the San Diego Community Credit Union Stadium where the Chargers used to play? Okay. My wife and I were there at the end of October, and we happened to have tickets for the Navy Notre Dame football game. I had never been there. Should have thought better about maybe going earlier and tailgating or something, but didn't. But I thought I had enough time to drive there and make it for the game, my wife and I. Now, this is a stadium built in 1967. Holds 70,000. I learned this after my experience, a little bit about the stadium. So we took off in enough time that we thought we would get there and have no problem getting in the doors. So driving along, and it's probably an hour and a half before game time, and I'm 1/4 mile from the stadium. And it's a dead stop traffic. And I can see all these people that had parked elsewhere and are walking into the stadium, and they're going to think if this might not be a good thing here. So it's moving along, and it's like traffic lanes are merging. It's like 6 lanes, at least 7 lanes. It appears, and I haven't, nothing has proved me wrong on this, one entrance for those to that stadium to park. That's 6, 7 lanes merging in, and you can see it. Well, now I can see the stadium. I can see this nice, sign and all these lanes, and I'm like wondering where am I going to park and all of this. Inch along. It's an hour before game time. It's 50 minutes before game time, and we finally made it to the gate where now it probably splits off. Just say that this is the stadium, and you're coming into it here. 3 lanes probably go that way, and 3, I'm not sure. Actually, it looked like they all went one way, but so we make it here, and I roll down the window and I ask, is there someone going to show us where to park? Yeah, just take that road. It's a street that basically goes around the entire stadium. But from that street, once I got on that, everything from that street to the stadium was parking, and everything to the left with the chain link fence was tailgating. And they got in there some other way from the backside. And there's every so often that there was a gate for the chain link fence that allowed pedestrians to cross to go to the stadium. Well, it's half an hour before game time now. I'm inching along, and there's nobody telling me where to go. Just follow the road that goes around the stadium. So I'm making it around. And now it's so close to game time, all the tailgaters are coming across the road. Besides the fact that you weren't getting to park, you now got people that are just going like crazy.
You're thinking you shouldn't hit them. That's good, Daryl.
Yeah, I'm really, really slow. Finally, my wife gets out and she walks up to try and see, where is there somebody that's going to help us with the parking? She comes back, there was a gentleman with a red sport coat on. It looked like he was connected to the facility. And she says, are we going to get to park somewhere? Is there somebody going to, yeah, just keep going, it'll thin out, kind of that type of message, like, thank you. So we keep going. We're about halfway around. We finally said, it doesn't appear that there's going to be anybody telling us anything. So we decided to take a right turn. Lo and behold, once we made, because it looked like there was cars just jammed in there, made the right turn to go in to this parking area. All kinds of places to park. And what had happened is a lot of people would park in there, and they'd take the next spot, put a table up or something. It was getting close enough to game time. They took them down, so you had all kinds of, rooms. So we parked. Maybe 15 minutes to game time now. Now we got to figure out where we're going to go in. They got gates, A, B, C, D, E, but they're all closed. So we start walking to where do we get in. So we go all the way back here. And because that's where the line is. So we're now in a big line. It's about gate O. And you start now going N, P, M, and going down L that way. And all these tailgaters coming in, they must know where to go because they're not standing in line to go there. They're just going there. So you got this mess. One entrance that I could see to get into a 70,000 seat stadium. And because they've got the security, walkthroughs and all that, they probably didn't want them at all. The other gates didn't feel that they want to spend money. Keep in mind, charges no longer play here, so, it's, I don't know how busy they are. So, finally, we're about M. My wife decides to try and find out where do we go in. So she walks and she goes back, she says, somewhere around J, it's so packed I couldn't go any further. So I said, well, you get in line and I'll go. So I made it to about F and still could not find where you get in. Came back. And all these Notre Dame fans from all over the country and Navy fans predominantly from San Diego here, what is going on there? This is the worst thing ever that they've ever experienced, And now the Star Spangled Banner's playing, the flyover, the Navy, come in. The game has started, and it's about 10 minutes later, and everybody is just fuming. All of a sudden, all the gates open up, the security was no longer an issue, and because they knew how bad everyone was, so they just, and they had these wands, like they were gonna use them, but people walked by them and they didn't stop anybody. And so we got into the stadium. So, frustration level about just somebody to tell the people where to go or what to do, either parking or, where the gates are or anything like that. It's totally lacking. Total lack of enough staff to handle a crowd of that size, which was 64,000 that attended the game. So, we get in, and the one thing once we got in, this is where my comments about, something built in 1967 isn't going to look too snazzy underneath the stands, and it didn't. It looked like a dungeon with the concessions and all of that. It looked terrible. But the minute you got into the field was great. The seating was great. Our video much better than what they had on the ends. I'll tell you that. And so we watched the game. Had some issues about their concessions too, by the way, which for a college game, a $12 beer or things like that, but that's beside the point. We decided, well, we're going to get out early because we're not going to go through this mess again, driving out. So it was probably 10 minutes of the fourth quarter, and of course Notre Dame was kicking Navy anyway. And so we go to our car, to get to our car, and to think, well, this will be a breeze. I think it was 2 hours later we got out. Again, the pedestrians crossing the traffic, no one directing anything. Kind of like you, at least, the police and different, at the end. And most frustrating experience I've ever had. So I decided to call them. Now, the city of San Diego owns that. I don't know if they did prior to charges leaving, but they own it now. It's a San Diego Community Credit Union. So I called and I said, I just want to give you some feedback. I got a hold of someone who I think was the right person. And I said, I happen to be on a board, for events, football and all of that, and concerts. And we appreciate feedback, and I'm sure you do too, staff does, about how well you did. And I said, I'm going to tell you that it's going to be a little harsh. And so I proceeded to explain to them that, in my opinion, they didn't have the staff to cover what they had. I said, certainly you've had we didn't expect that large of a crowd. The tickets were sold well in advance. I said, I am not believing that. I said, you've never experienced big crowds? I said, the Chargers used to play here. And she started laughing. She says, no, they did not have big crowds, was her comment. But she received the comment. She said, we've had many calls. And I said, I've been to every professional sport. I've been to big concerts. I've never seen anything run so poorly. And she took it and said, well, thank you for your comments. We've heard the same. And I said, it wouldn't matter what was there. I would never go there again. Never. And so my message to you and staff here is that every time I've driven up through the gates, it's nothing but the best in terms of how the staff direct you, treat you, when you come in, and just everything. I've never experienced anyone who isn't stepping up and doing their job. And I started thinking that, what, that was the first time that I had been there, and I'll never go back again. But let's just say that if I did, I know now what to prepare for, so I would have done things differently. But you shouldn't have to do that as a customer. It should always be the first time experience. So kudos to everyone. Treat people as though it's their first time, because it doesn't matter if they've been there 100 times and they know where to go and everything else, but if you treat them right, then they appreciate it. So kind of the end of the year, kind of my appreciation to the staff.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darryl.
Appreciate that.
Yeah,
No, I both agree with that, and I think it also speaks to signage, doesn't it? We forget when you go someplace all the time that
Yeah, there
somebody
was
else
no
doesn't
signs
know
there.
this is the main entrance, or this is the parking lot, or
Yeah,
they don't know it.
yeah. And there was no signs.
Even cloth signs that stick in a pole thing that you could take down. It's an awesome reminder.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking from the tenant's point of view, and Bison Game Day, as big as that's become, there's a lot of people that go into that, from technical to concessions to
Oh, yeah.
administrative, and to have our games go off like they are, we
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to do as just an NDSU staff. So Rob and staff that's
Yeah.
here, thank you, and please pass along our appreciation to everyone else, because it's making it look easy. We know it isn't easy, so thank you.
Thank you.
Darryl.
Yeah.
Any other additional items? All right, we're adjourned.